I was actually going to do an overpowered analysis on Katara next. However, most people in the comment section of my last overpowered analysis, being Iroh, being an overpowered mentor done right, actually requested a specific overpowered analysis on Azula. So that brings us to today. I just rewatched Avatar. Before going through this rewatch, I thought originally everyone liked Azula and thought Azula was a very memorable character was because she was a lot of people's first crush. There's a lot of people out there that like femdom, a lot of masochists out there, and they were like, goddamn, Azula fits my fantasy bill perfectly. I did a lot of research on Rule 34 for this video, if you know what I'm saying. But she's a damn good villain in her own right. And in fact, I'd go as far as to say that in the Avatar, The Last Airbender, she is by far the best written villain in the entire story. So I'm gonna highlight a few points as to why she's really well written. It was only after rewatching it and really paying attention to all the details that really let me put together why Azula is a fantastic villain in all the ways that you never expected. First, let's qualify why she's overpowered. She's a 14-year-old girl as the story goes on, okay? And she is such a legendarily powerful prodigy at firebending that she's shooting out blue flames everywhere. She's shooting lightning at people, which is something that most firebenders can't even master through the entire lifetime of firebending. And she's stronger in just hand-to-hand combat than almost every other character in the series too. When she's up against the Kyoshi warriors, she basically beats them hand-to-hand. When there's the eclipse thing that goes down, Aang, Toph, and Sokka all together couldn't pin her down. She was able to avoid all that crap, even though she could not access her firebending. When she does access her firebending, she is absolutely horrifyingly strong. Every single time she bumps into Aang throughout like the entire second season, she's winning all the 1v1s. And it's only thanks to other people showing up that lets Aang escape time and time again. Now, I really love Azula because thematically, she is so important to the overarching story here. The fact that she is an overpowered prodigy is so great when contrasting Zuko, in my opinion, the best written character in the entire show, and one of the best written characters in all of fiction. Like, this dude's character arc was so damn good. And what's so cool is that he's the antagonist of the first season, so you didn't need Azula. It was only in the second season when he started becoming a bit of a renegade character, that's when you needed his foil, Azula, to actually be introduced. And the reason why Azula is a fantastic foil to Aang, who, like, if you think about it, Aang's also kind of a prodigy. He's in fact much more of a prodigy than even Azula. He's the goddamn Avatar. How could she possibly be a foil character to Aang? Now, this is so interesting, and again, it's something that I did not notice. I was thinking of doing an entire video breaking down why Fire Lord Ozai, or Phoenix King Ozai, or whatever else egotistical name this dude wanted to come up with himself, biggest dickest Ozai of the Fire Nation. I wanted to make an entire video about why he is not a good villain. Looking at major villains in major stories, he's not one of the best ones. In fact, Legend of Korra, which is I think a lot worse than Avatar: The Last Airbender, both Zahir and Amon are so much better villains than Ozai is, despite the fact that Ozai was built up for 3 seasons and both those guys only shown in a single season of Korra. I might still do that video. You never know. If you guys want me to, maybe I will. I mention him here, and I think this is important to mention because he is a beautiful thematic opposition to Aang in one way. The fact that Azula is the product of his horrible parenting. If we really try to dig deep into Azula's psyche and see what makes her tick, a lot of it was she really is a bit of a brown noser. Yes, she's evil. Yes, she's definitely a sociopath, but she wants to impress her father. Her father is the most important figure in her life. He is this dude who's really powerful, who manages to become the next Fire Lord by force, even though it wasn't his rightful place. Looking at Azula, she wants to become the next Fire Lord, even though Zuko is the one that's technically the crown prince. She is absolutely power hungry, and a lot of that power hungriness comes from her father as well. Her father is always praising her for being a sociopath and praising her for being a prodigy, not actually caring whether she's a good person or whether she has good morals or that her ideals or mental health is sound. None of that mattered to him. The fact was, she was a badass at firebending, and that is the thing that her father respected. So that is how she started to view herself, a superior human to every single other person around her. Aang preaches kindness and love, just like Iroh always did, which is a direct thematic opposition to Ozai, who preaches power and fear. And it's that parenting that is what turned Azula into the person she became. Azula is a thematic opposition to Zuko because Zuko needed to throw away his royalty to chase morality, and she is someone that thrives in the immorality of her royalty. Azula is a beautiful thematic opposition to Zuko, who really stole the show, in my opinion. This dude has the best character arc out there. I am hard-pressed to think of 5 characters in all of fiction that have a better character arc than Zuko. Off the top of my head, only Guts surpasses Zuko in like personal character arc. I can't think of another one right now. And Azula manages to be a perfect thematic contrast to all of those points. But also, her thematic opposition to Aang, that comes from the values that her father pushed upon her. It is in that way alone that Ozai stands up as a decently written antagonist and good thematic opposition to Aang through the embodiment of what he did to create the monster that is Azula. Now, I love the concept that it's her own power that ended up being her downfall. The amazing line,
"And absolute power corrupts absolutely,"
is so beautifully embodied by Azula. The fact that her always questing for power and always having people worshiping her and obeying her through fear have ended up becoming her downside. Mei ended up loving Zuko more than she feared Azula, and that was the cause of her betrayal. Azula is slowly starting to realize that fear is not a way to control people. In fact, love is more powerful, and love can break fear, which again is that Aang versus Azula philosophical opposition I mentioned earlier. Azula's whole purpose versus Aang is this burden of fear versus this burden of love. What is stronger, and what will end up reigning supreme at the end of the day? So all of a sudden, her 2 closest confidants, I would say friends, but they're not friends. They're people that worship her through fear. They betrayed her. She cannot control everyone through fear alone, and she begins to feel betrayal at all sides. The Dai Li, people that worshipped her ever since Ba Sing Se, well, they used to serve someone else. They used to serve the Earth Kingdom, and they betrayed the Earth Kingdom to work for Long Feng, and they betrayed Long Feng to work for her. What's gonna stop them from betraying her if someone else rolls around that they either love or fear more than her? So she ends up firing all of them. She ends up banishing all of her personal servants and confidants because not a single human being can be trusted to be controlled through fear alone. She becomes the Fire Lord and is completely corrupted. She loses her mind because there is no step forward. She has no future. So her mental breakdown in the final battle versus Zuko and Katara, I think, was not only really well justified, but really well written as well, because that is the ultimate culmination of her character arc, and that is the ultimate climax for someone who is completely corrupted. Her entire life was a lie. She can control no one, and she can't even control herself. So prepare to cry. Azula's a prodigy that got her mind absolutely twisted by a higher power. Like so many people in real life and in every TV show ever, daddy issues is an incredibly prominent part of almost everyone's life. Everyone brings forward into their future hangups that they've had in their past. I find Azula fascinating because she didn't know she had daddy issues. She's a character that her father loved, that her father treated well. But it was her father's twisted nature, mentality, and everything that he was, Azula revered, and that the entire nation revered, that really made her as twisted as she ended up being. Azula's a monster, okay? Her own mother thought she was a monster, but it is completely unknown how much of it could have been avoided if she would have had normal parenting. If she would have been born into a different time of peace, if she would have been born to a different family, if she would have been born infected by a different ideology, no one knows who she could have been. In some kind of ironic twist of fate, Zuko was the lucky one. Lucky that he wasn't talented. Lucky that his father didn't appreciate him. Lucky that he could actually grow up to make his own decisions and have those decisions carry him forward with friends for life and bonds that he created through blood and through love. Azula, on the other hand, well, maybe she was the one that was just lucky to be born. Born to get everything served her on a silver platter, to be absolutely spoiled by her father in every possible way because she was the prodigy. She was the one that was going to take him over. She was part of the Fire Nation, a nation that is superior to all other nations, that has this crazy mentality of declaring war on the world to spread their glory and their wisdom and their better way of life with the world. It is a hostile takeover to help them appreciate that the Fire Nation is the superior nation. If she wouldn't have been brought up or raised in this completely imperialist society, who knows who she could have become. If she wouldn't have been born a prodigy, or if she would have been born a prodigy but to a household that had much stronger and better values, or if she would have had a father that preached creating bonds through love instead of through fear, who knows who she could have become. And who knows how many people are out there right now in the world that are preaching and practicing all sorts of racist, homophobic nonsense purely because they were raised in an atmosphere that preached those values. Who knows how many people are part of the mega woke cancel Twitter mob just because they were left alone to their own devices and their parents were the Twitter mob. I'm not saying Azula's a wonderful person, but I think the tragedy of Azula is very misunderstood by most of the people that watch Avatar. They see her as some crazy psycho, completely evil person, and she is, but you have to also empathize with the fact that she's a 14-year-old girl that was given everything she wanted, that had absolute power, and whose father basically spoon-fed her all the praise that she possibly needs to just follow his ideals and become the perfect daughter for him. It's these different layers and different perspectives that I think makes Ozai a decent foil character to Aang, because her philosophical approach embodies more of his spoon feeding and his manipulation than even her own. And I think it's what makes her such a fantastically done character. And in my opinion, by far the best villain in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and one of the best written psychopath characters I have ever seen. That's why I think Azula is a goddamn well-written character. She is overpowered and so well-written. Every part about her, like throughout the entire story. The Rule 34 is pretty great too, I'm not even gonna lie. So with that all said and done, I wanted to thank you all for joining me on my Avatar adventure. It's been a good time, a good run. It's time for you to look inward. Start asking yourself the big questions. Right after this, are you gonna go watch my overpowered analysis on Toph? Or are you gonna go watch my overpowered analysis on Iroh? Let me know future videos you want me to talk about, either an OP analysis on Katara, or maybe something like No One Understands Zuko. I feel like, that's a video I gotta make at some point. So with that all said and done, thank you for joining me on this adventure. I'm excited that I'm reviving old series and talking about them and really hammering down why they're so goddamn good and why you remember them even today, even though they're so old and they've existed so long ago. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like, subscribe, stick around for next time, and remember to stay weird, fam.